order. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Has the notice for this meeting been posted?
I certify that the notice has been posted in accordance with the law.
Any public comments?
Sir, we have no individuals for public comment.
Okay. Introductions, Chancellor, special guests, et cetera.
We do, Board Chair, if you'll indulge us for just a few minutes. You remember that at the last board meeting, there were several references to some commercials. And so we actually,
yeah.
I think, I want to invite up here Vice Chancellor Melson and Senior Associate Vice Chancellor Elisa Olson, our Chief Marketing Officer. If you will both come up here, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Chancellor. Thank you, Chair and Trustees for this opportunity. And for the sake of time, we are going to preview two of our commercials for this year. One of them that you mentioned the last time, Chair, and one that's a general commercial that you may actually see on the Olympics. And for the sake of time, I'm going to turn it over to Elisa to introduce the videos, and then we'll get right to them.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. I'm Elisa Olson, Chief Marketing Officer for Lone Star College. And every year, we produce new television commercials to keep our brand fresh in the marketplace and keep our name top of mind with our community. As much as possible, we always try to feature real Lone Star College students, faculty, and staff in our commercials. The students love it. Their families love it. They become kind of famous on campus. And I think it gives them a real sense of pride in being a Lone Star College student. And we have two commercials for you here today.
Okay, so first, we'd like to show you our general enrollment commercial. This one was completed in May.
Picture this: your dream, your future, your family. Everything you've ever wanted is right here. You walk across that stage, and suddenly it's in your hands. And as you look out, you see the people you've done it all for, and those who've done everything for you. Picture this: put your future into focus today with the education and support that can only come from Lone Star College. Register now for fall classes.
All right. And next, the second commercial we'll show, we produced for our colleagues over at the Lone Star College Online.
Picture this: you go to work, check your grades, and back to work. A quick study session, a little self-care. Then it's family time, and maybe even a little homework. Picture this: your college fits into your schedule, and you join a community of like-minded students who choose Lone Star College Online with expert educators and flexible schedules. Picture this: you all get a world-class education at your pace, your way.
So if I may, I'd like to ask a couple of groups to stand this evening. First, our Lone Star College Marketing and Communications team and some colleagues from Lone Star College Online who worked on the commercial. Could you guys please stand and be recognized? Thank you. And second, our colleagues at Hierarchy Advertising, our advertising agency that produced this commercial for us. If you all could please stand. And that's what we.
Yeah, thank you for your time, and
All
we'd
right.
be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
No, thank you. I mean, this is just excellent work. You know, I watch Fox News and I catch these during Fox News, which is a great time slot. And they're such a attention-catching commercials. And I just think they're just well done, extremely well done. And, you know, keep up that good work and sending the message out there because I think it works. I believe it works. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may. Just to let you know that yesterday afternoon, I was watching the Olympic swimming and the commercial came on and Katie Ledecky had just won a gold medal and they had just finished interviewing her. And then your commercial came on and it was perfect. So I applaud you and your team for just high quality information about Lone Star. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Any
so-
other comments?
I have
trustees?
one, Chair, if you'll indulge me. I just want to thank the both of you and everyone that was a part of that. One of the things that's been really important to me since I became the chancellor last August is that our commercials really sort of talk about our brand and the lived experiences of our students, right? If we tell honest, truthful stories about our students, this place sells itself. We don't really sort of have to do a whole lot. We just have to, and that's what I really like about those two commercials is both of them are realistic and sort of who our students are and the things that they have to overcome. And I think when people watching those ads see themselves in those ads and see people sort of, for me, for example, the first ad is really touching because so many of us first generation college students remember sort of the feeling of our parents being in the audience and clapping for us and what a joyous moment that was. And that's how we connect and build a brand. Because one of the things that Elisa has taught me is brand is how people feel when they see your logo, right? And so that's one of the things that we work really hard. And I want to thank you all. I know I don't speak to most of you every day, but I have seen a remarkable difference in the ads and the marketing that we're putting out, and it's more in line with sort of the future of Lone Star. So thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a comment real quick. I know that when I watch the Astros, because you know I like the Astros. I could be I was in South Texas a couple of times and they're showing Space City, you know, the channels. So everybody was wondering what nobody know now. Even down there, they know what Lone Star College is, and they ask about it. So I don't know if that's part of the deal or not, but it's in San Antonio. I saw one in San Antonio as well. So that I thought it's a little extra help.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Could I get a motion for the approval of the minutes of the June 6th, 2024 budget workshop and regular meeting? A motion, please.
So move.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. Special reports and announcements, Chancellor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. As everyone knows, we don't have a board meeting in July, so you're going to have to indulge me for a little bit. I got a list here. So we had the Magnolia Center groundbreaking on June 27th from 9 to noon. It was hot and steamy. It was a hot one. And so we did the groundbreaking on that. Trustee Boyd was there. Appreciate you being there, sir. And you know, that really sort of is, along with the Victory Center, is really our last major construction project from the GO bonds from 2014. So a lot of the things that we talked about that day is the community of Magnolia has been incredibly patient with us for a decade as we sort of build that building. I wanted this board to know that I'm going to go speak to the Magnolia ISD School Board personally at their September board meeting. And then the big one, of course, was Hurricane Beryl. Right, so we had the hurricane since the last board meeting, and we were closed from July 8th until July 18th. And you know, one of the things that I'm really proud of is how this institution reacts, and it has for a long time. And it's not just me. I inherited a rich tradition of taking care of employees and doing the right thing. And so, yes, we did close for an extended period of time. We reopened. Essentially one building at a time, one location at a time. And so we have 25 locations. And I just want to commend all of Lone Star College, all of its employees, faculty, and staff. It was really sort of heartwarming to see the outpouring from offering people batteries to charge their Teslas, to places to stay. It was really remarkable. And I think that during those 2 weeks, even though we suffered sort of such great physical casualty, it was a really inspiring moment, right after a rough first year, to be quite candid with everyone, as the chancellor, to sort of put an end cap on the first year with sort of seeing the wonderful things that I saw from this institution and from its people. And so I will tell the board that when we open back up again, and let me actually stop right there. So part of the reason we were able to close, ladies and gentlemen, I want to make it really clear, the Board of Trustees was incredibly supportive. Every single trustee reached back out and said, you have my full support, do what you need to do. Let's make sure we take care of the employees. Particularly, for example, Trustee Sullivan, who I called to discuss Kingwood, which was one of our locations that in the beginning was going to be the one that opened last. He was very, very supportive. And so I just want to make sure, because I don't want people to think that I acted crazy in spite of the Board of Trustees. No, I had their full support, and we have their full support. And just like I wrote on social media, yes, when we reopened, our enrollments were down about 7%. From where they were right before Hurricane Beryl. But just as I wrote on social media, when you take care of humans, humans will take care of you. And I can tell you that as of this morning, we're at negative 2.6, which is still negative. But if you count it, we have roared back in a week or so at 5 percentage points, which for us is thousands and thousands of students. And so I have full faith and confidence that by the time official day comes out, we're actually going to end up positive for the fall. And again, we closed and took care of our employees. We paid our part-time employees even if they didn't work. We offered millions of dollars of aid from the foundation. Thank you to Vice Chancellor Melson and Nicole Robinson. We offered millions of dollars of help to hundreds, I think actually, no, not hundreds, thousands of students. We gave out $100,000 in auxiliary dollars to our own employees that suffered tree damage, lost their food, et cetera, et cetera. And so, when people ask me, why is this place a great place to work? It's not because a magazine decides that it's a great place to work. It's the actions of all the individuals here during Hurricane Beryl that made really such a blessed place to work. And I wanted to commend everyone that was a part of that. On the expense tracking, just so the board knows, most of our damage on Hurricane Beryl was tree related. It was really sort of clean up and clearing the trees. For example, at Kingwood, we lost about 60 to 70 trees, and many of them fell on buildings. In fact, if you're wondering why we're having the meeting in this room, it's because a tree fell on the boardroom, right? And so one of my rules is we're going to do things the right way, not the fast way. And so we could have gotten it probably ready by today, thanks to Executive Vice Chancellor Johnson, but I told her, let's just try to see to move the meeting. And again, with the full support of the board chair and the board, to the committee room, so we can make sure that the boardroom is up to snuff for the next board meeting. So we should be back there by next September. And again, most of the damage was tree related to the trustees. It's about $250,000 total. And to give you an idea how much of it went to Kingwood, I have a nifty little graph here, is $105,000 of that $250,000 went to Kingwood just to clear trees. And so I'll be sending out a written report of that. We also, Dr. Smith had his retirement celebration a couple of days ago here actually in the exact same room. And so we wished him well, and Dr. Smith is retiring. We also have the fall 2024 convocation on August 22nd. So be there or be square. It's at 2 p.m. at the Woodlands Waterway Marriott. And if you're wondering why it's at 2 p.m., originally we were going to have an investiture in the morning. But because of Hurricane Beryl, I asked the Board of Trustees if we could postpone the investiture so that our marketing folks could have more time to prepare for convocation. And so we've eliminated sort of the morning event. And if you're wondering why we're having them on the same day, it's to save money, folks. I do not want to spend money on an investiture if we can avoid it. And so guess what? The next available date where we have the Marriott for an entire day, where we only traditionally use it for half a day, is Valentine's Day. So I hope you love me, because we're going to spend February 14th celebrating my investiture as the chancellor of this institution. So I wanted to explain that. The faculty return on August 19th, and classes begin on August 26th. Watts is starting back up for season 2. I was renewed, folks. So Watts season 2 is starting on August 31st. August 30th from 10 to 11:30 at University Park in the Grand Hall, formerly known as West Dining. We have the Labor Day holiday from August 31st to September 2nd. And lastly, next month on September 5th from 4 to 5 p.m. So right before the board meeting on September 5th, we are going to have the Stephen C. Head Building Dedication Ceremony. And if you're wondering where the Stephen C. Head Building is going to be, you're sitting in it, folks. The community building will be renamed in honor of the former Chancellor Metters, Dr. Stephen C. Head. And so he's going to be here and we'll have a little ceremony. And so if you could show up at 4 p.m. to honor a man that gave this institution 39 years of his life, I would appreciate it. And that's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Well, Chancellor, I want to just commend you on your leadership during this hurricane crisis. And I want to commend the presidents as well as everyone who supported their response there, because it takes quick response. A good leadership just responds and gets it done. And certainly I support that type of leadership. So I want to thank you and the presidents and all those who supported their response. It's so easily to say, this is not my deal, it's not my property, it's not my stuff. But it takes leadership to step out and also leadership for people to follow to get the job done. So I want to thank everyone for that response and helping getting things back to order. All righty.
Thank you, sir. It was a team effort, literally.
Team
It
effort.
was
That's
everyone
right.
working together.
Chancellor's Cabinet, Dr. Napolis, I think you're up.
Good evening, Chancellor, Chair, members of the board. I have the privilege to present to you on behalf of the Chancellor's Cabinet on a topic that's very important and that you've been hearing about and receiving emails and other communications. And as to follow the trend for this evening, my report will provide good news. So the next clip is the agenda. We'll talk about the college's goals, FAFSA simplification, the SAP appeal process, and an opportunity for questions and answers in a conclusion. And so September 7th, 2023, the board approved our goals. And so it's important as we talk about what's going on with the college, as we talk about leadership, that we talk about the operational goals. And so financial aid is seen in two of the goals. As you can see in goal 2, the Pell graduation rates, and in goal 4, when we're talking about financial aid functions and service agreements. And so this is something that is near to the hearts of our students, but also near important to the board, the chancellor, and everybody who works for Lone Star College, because we are clear on what our goals are. And so I'll talk about FAFSA simplification, and I'm going to try to simplify a very complex process that has occurred. And so here's the overview of FAFSA simplification. The goal was to streamline and simplify the process from the 108 questions to 36 questions, to change who is considered the contributor or the financial support for the person applying. Talking about the new requirements that a person who applies for financial aid has to be more eligible for additional Pell grants, which are those funds that are more free and don't have to be returned like loans. So changes to Pell Grant eligibility, replacing the expected family contribution with the student aid index. And you can see the number there, 1,500 negative. So what the purpose of that was to make sure that the students in the most need get the most resources in maximum Pell amounts. And of course, there were some delays in the release of the new FAFSA. And I'll go over that with the following slides. So the previous FAFSA process included what many of us, I know that Chancellor Castillo has mentioned it, but I also applied for FAFSA and used financial aid and those resources to pay for school. And looking back at it, I was very fortunate to only attempt it 2 or 3 times. And so a complex process to allow students the opportunity to access education was really hard for many, especially if the goal was to get educated. And so as you can see, the federal government talked about ways to simplify the process by reducing the number of questions, simplifying and reducing the confusion on the right, the complexity, the manual inputting of the data, the accessibility of the information, who reports what, confusion, inconsistencies, the amount of time that somebody has to submit, resubmit, and then resubmits again. And since some of the barriers for special circumstances, because not everybody has the same situation as far as their living arrangements. And so the new FAFSA includes direct IRS data integration. And so the information that's filed with the IRS is uploaded to the FAFSA form, which makes it a lot quicker in practice and also reduces the error. There are fewer questions, as I mentioned, from 108 to 36, shortened applications, new Pell Grant criteria. We talked about the EFC being replaced, updated eligibilities, and revised cost of attendance. And so this all came about with the passage of the Future Act in 2019. And as you can see here, the award started in 2024. So the timeline here shows originally it was scheduled for October, and then there was a delay. And so the new FAFSA was not available until December 31st. And so really January, and a lot of people are taking care of some other priorities during the holiday season. Many of the students are out of school. And as you can see, we begin the communication with our students from October for the initial launch to when it was launched by the federal government in December 31st. And then when we issued the first review of the financial aid packaging. So solutions implemented, of course, we need to make sure that our processes were in place, that our people were prepared. We needed to make sure that students knew what was going on. So we sent them emails. We updated our websites. We worked with our partners to send text as well, making sure that we handle the inquiries associated to financial aid. And then also for the ISER reprocessing. The ISER is the Institutional Student Information Record. It's what is produced when the student files for FAFSA, making sure that we review those information so that students can get maximum Pell. And so as of July 24th, we awarded $274,862,000. So what that means is it's awarded to students that are eligible for it. It doesn't necessarily mean they've accepted it, but I can tell you that of the Pell amount up there, 115 million, all of those funds have been accepted by our students. So that means access to students, money they don't have to pay back. So the future state will continue to outreach financial aid efforts. We are preparing with the federal government for the next cycle of the FAFSA release. And of course, because of lessons learned, we're going to make sure that we're going to be able to be nimble and pivot should there be any new or recurring issues with the FAFSA. So success stories, we had events that we made sure that students were eligible for. We had them both at all our physical main campuses as well as online. And so I'll talk about the SAP appeal process. So SAP stands for Student Academic Progress. For financial aid, you need to be making progress towards a degree, a credential. And so satisfactory academic progress is not necessarily a bad thing. When a student does not meet the 3 requirements, a 2.0 GPA, completing 67% of credits attempted, or going over 150% of what a degree plan is, then they receive a warning. And so for us, we want to make sure that students have an opportunity to continue with financial aid because things happen. And so we revised the staff appeal process. So what that allows is for a student to say, hey, there are some life issues that have impacted me negatively, and so I need to be more successful. And so I'm very proud to say that we are reducing the review time from 6 weeks plus, 40 plus days, to 7 to 10 days. And then as we progress, it'll be a lot quicker. And so this is a checklist of all the things that happen. There's a lot of technical things that you see here and a lot of back and forth between where the student submits, what an employee sees, and then some high degree of error because of the technology. And so here's what you see now. You see the home campus of the student reviews it. If additional documentation is needed, communication occurs through the portal that the students sign. The appeal status has all the colors to show progress, and then the home campus awards the students. And on the left is what an employee sees. On the right is what a student sees. And so we talked about SAP criteria. Red is an area that needs improvement. Green is an area that's making progress. So our student in real time can see what they need to submit. The portal allows them to provide everything, and it doesn't allow them to move forward until they complete what is required. So it reduces error and increases the time of completion. And then also all the information is loaded onto the system on base, which is wonderful. And every time there is an updated information, it sends a notification to the students. And so these are some of the metrics. The availability opened up 7:30. And so we're looking forward to meeting the goals of 7 to 10 days, but more closely to 7 and 8 days. So in conclusion, for the FAFSA simplification, the new simplified FAFSA process with Derek IRS data integration for your questions, in theory, will reduce barriers. I know that they've had several glitches, but we're overcoming that. We've actually had a plan, as we discussed with Chancellor Castillo, in case the federal government or any government has any issues. We want to make sure that we will not neglect or impede the ability of our students to access information and education. So we do that with effective outreach and training, increased financial aid warning, and improve SAP appeal process and future plans. So as you saw, we started off with the 2 goals, and I can confidently say we're making great progress in spite of and because of the planning in place and because of the leadership we have and the people behind me, the people watching online, and the wonderful work of the financial aid group, as well as the people in IT. With that, I submit myself to your questions.
Dr. Napoles,
Yes, sir.
let's go back to the Pell Grants. What was that number again of how many Pell Grants, how much Pell Grants was approved? What's that number?
15 million. Let me
Say again?
18,034.
And that's how much money?
115 million.
I'm sorry, it's slides a little, my eyes just can't read it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
But how of the Pell Grants approved, do you know how many people, how many students took advantage of the Pell Grants? Actually took them?
Yes, sir. Of that number there, all the students took advantage of the Pell Grants.
Really?
Yes, sir.
How's it, are you to the point, and I'm not criticizing here, are you to the point where you can trace what students did with that Pell Grant? In other words, were they successful in their program? You know, they took the money, they were able to utilize it, they met their goals. Have you got any traceability there?
So for the data here, no, not yet, sir, because this is reflective of the fall award. But where we can see the results are for the students who meet satisfactory academic progress and those who don't. And so it's more of a look back at what happens at the end of the semester with the grades, with how many classes they complete versus how many they end up with. But also, we're going to improve and increase the number of early alert opportunities and touches for our students to make sure that they don't get in a position where they're in financial aid warning.
Are you at a point where you can formulate a profile of a student who accepts Pell Grants and who they are and what they do and what they do with it?
So part of that, yes, we can do a profile of our students as far as what they do with it. The funds should be used to support educational uses. We can have some surveys.
Well, my thoughts are these, and I don't want to get too far off. My thoughts are these: if you had a profile of a successful, I'm going to make up a term here, Pell Grant student, to me that would be pretty helpful.
Yes, sir.
And be able to see, students who apply and even coaching students on how to be successful in the application of Pell Grants. That's kind of what my thought process is on that.
Yes, sir. So as far as the number of students that filed SAP appeals from August 2023 to July 2024, it was about 3,700. And so that's about 15% of our students. And so I can work on that for you, sir.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So I
Chair,
have
what
a-
if we have some trustees have questions? Do you mind? I have a question. You mind acknowledging
ahead.
me?
Yeah, Trustee
Now that
Feldman.
we're through. Okay, thank you. Dr. Napoles, with respect to this slide, would you mind going back one? There you go. How do students know that they can appeal? How do we educate a student to know that if they've been declined, what avenues available to them to appeal the process, the decision rather?
They receive notifications, sir, if they're in a category, so they'll receive an email letting them know that they did not meet satisfactory academic progress and that there's an opportunity to file an appeal.
Okay, if and I'm kind of putting myself in this position years ago. If if a potential awardee receives bad news, sometimes they don't want to confront it or know how to confront it. Does that make sense? How can we, or do we might already do it. How do we ensure that we're giving every student in that category an opportunity to overcome any obstacle and be successful in achieving funding?
So the goal of the appeal is to help a student who did not meet the requirements. And so one of the things that this new simplified formula does is allows them to upload the information to get immediate feedback. And so a couple of things with the new simplification process, the student has access to all this information. They get more timely responses for an employee and for students in general, not just those students in financial aid. We want to make sure all students are successful that come to Lone Star College. And so we will be promoting more of our student resources, things that were related to tutoring, the engagement with the faculty, engagement with the staff. And so as Chancellor Castillo said, it's about the people, and we have the team here to make sure that we're not just sending emails, we're not just sending texts, but as the picture showed of the students at Lone Star College Houston North, that we have people who are making physical presences and availability for those in the community.
Okay. I appreciate the answer. It's kind of not addressing what I was concerned about. So I'm going to kind of think of how I can rephrase it
Oh, I'm
some
sorry.
other time, not right now. It's not your fault. And I mean that. But for instance, when in business, sometimes you send out an email, then you have an open rate, right? So
Yes,
you know
sir.
who opens emails. Chancellor, do you kind of get where I'm going?
Yes,
What
sir.
do you know and what do you do? I mean, look, I was, and I'm pretty open about this. In my first semester at University of Houston after high school, I was put on probation, academic probation. I didn't know what it was. So when I got a second letter suspending me for a year, I didn't know what it was either. I just went back to school. And then they said, you're not welcome. You got to go to San Jack and get your GPA up, and then we'll think about letting you back in. That's real. That happens.
Yeah, and so when you look at G4, right? And Dr. Napoles, can you do me a favor and go back to G4? When you look at G4, and we talk about the life cycle of financial aid, I hope you went past it.
Yeah, I
think.
did, sorry.
So when you look at so implement benchmarks and service level agreements for advising and financial aid functions, right? That's exactly what we're getting at. So for example, if I come to you, and having been in the exact same situation myself, you get that. And let's gauge the reaction as former recipients of that from, hey, we need you to file this appeal. Well, how long is that going to take? 47 to 50 days. I'm not that inclined to go through that process because I can go get financial aid down the street at this other college or university. And so what's really remarkable about sort of being able to get it down to 7 to 10 days, it's for better or for worse, however this shakes off, you will know in 7 to 10 days where you stand. And so what we're hoping is that by being able to give students a 7 to 10 window to resolve the issue, that they'll be more willing to engage in the process because it's a shorter time period. And it really is an incredible achievement to move from almost 50 days to 7 to 10 days on top of all of the silliness from the Department of Education with the FAFSA in the middle of all of that to sort of move. And so I do want to commend you on that. We're also part of it, back to the pros and the style of the emails we're taking a look at, right? So if I am 18, 19, 20, 25 years old, and this goes back to the chair's question, as we think of archetypes of the recipients of these students and the click-through rates and what they open up, there are certain messages that resonate with certain people, right? And so we have to tailor those messages to those particular populations so that they understand an appeal is a real thing, for example. It's not you're just going through the motions. And so we're changing the verbiage of the notices. We're changing the means by which the notices are delivered. And we're also changing the time it takes to resolve the issue with the hope that all three of those issues combined. And if you go back to the slide that you were just on, Dr. Napoles, that's why you see a 28.1% increase in the award, the financial aid that's been awarded, because we are awarding more financial aid. I'm sorry, 21.85%. We're awarding more financial aid than we've ever awarded because we're starting to sort of tailor the experience to the student experience better and better.
Thank you, Dr. Napoles.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Good work, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr.
Chancellor.
Napoles. Thank you.
AFT, Dr. Bergdahl.
Good evening. I am Dr. John Bergduff, President of the American Federation of Teachers here at Lone Star College. It is good to be back with you this evening. As you may remember, I was teaching a summer 1 class that kept me from coming to the last board meeting. I was sorry to see that no one on the board took me up on my invitation to take college algebra. In spite of a hurricane, you missed out on a lot of fun. Tonight, I want to speak in favor of 3 action items on this meeting's agenda, and I want to share with you some priorities that the AFT has committed to at the national level that intersect with priorities here at Lone Star College. Regarding tonight's agenda, AFT Lone Star College would like to go on record in public support specifically of action items 1, 6, and 14. Action item 1 would codify into LSC policy the rights of employees and students under the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act of 2023 and accompanying EEOC guidelines that took effect in June. Specifically, this policy makes employees and students eligible for reasonable accommodations needed for issues related to pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions. The policy change is required for us to be compliant with the law, but more importantly, is congruent with the values and culture of Lone Star College and the commitment of the union to fair treatment for everyone in the college community who needs a little extra support. Therefore, AFT endorses the passing of action item 1. Action item 14 authorizes the chancellor to establish a prevailing wage rate in accordance with the Department of Labor Davis-Bacon Act prevailing wage rates for fiscal year 2025. The AFT approached our previous chancellor a number of years ago, asking for a commitment to require outside employers who contract with the college to pay their workers a fair living wage in accordance with prevailing wages for their respective crafts as set for the Houston area by the Department of Labor. Our request reflected our commitment to all of our working brothers and sisters across the region. We were very pleased that Lone Star recognized that committing to a fair living wage for everyone associated directly or indirectly with the college was consistent with our mission to uplift our community as a whole. Action item 14 reaffirms that commitment and allows the administration to adjust these rates to the current economic situation in our area. Therefore, AFT also endorses passing action item 14. Finally, the biggest agenda item that is coming before the board this evening is action item 6, approving the Lone Star College budget for fiscal year 2025. There are far too many important aspects of this budget to discuss in this brief address, but we want to especially validate the proposed compensation increases included in this budget. Obviously, concern number 1 for any union is fair and appropriate pay for employees. For many years, AFT has advocated for compensation increases that keep employees caught up with, and if possible, ahead of inflation. It is more than gratifying that this priority has become standard operating procedure for both the board and the administration of Lone Star College. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the most recently reported 12-month percentage change in the Consumer Price Index stands at 3.0%, reflecting a very welcome downward trend in inflation over the last couple of years. The 4% across the board increase in compensation for all full-time and part-time employees reflected in the proposed Lone Star FY25 budget will actually increase the buying power of hardworking faculty and staff. The additional 4% increase for full-time faculty represents the first comprehensive market adjustment for full-time faculty in this century and brings our salaries more in line with colleagues at other institutions. The union is grateful for both of these proposals, as well as all other spending priorities included in the FY25 budget, and endorses passage of action item 6. For the last couple of minutes of my address this evening, I'm going to shift gears and say a few words about some national priorities of the American Federation of Teachers. AFT Lone Star College is one local in a national union currently representing 1.8 million employees of colleges, universities, public schools, teaching hospitals, and affiliated public agencies across the country. Every 2 years, the AFT comes together for a national convention. We just met for our 88th convention last week right here in Houston, and AFT Lone Star sent a delegation to represent the priorities of our employees. Among other agenda items at these conventions, the AFT discusses and passes a large number of resolutions that set the union's agenda and define our work for the upcoming 2 years. I want to mention just 2 of those resolutions. In the union world, we speak of paraprofessionals and school-related personnel, or PSRPs for short. In the language of Lone Star College, this would mean our staff employees, all employees other than faculty and administrators. At the convention, PSRPs from across the country told us about problems with understaffing, low wages, poor benefits, lack of due process, no job security, and exposure to workplace violence and other safety hazards. It was clear to me that Lone Star College has done a far better job protecting and supporting staff than many other institutions across the country. Even so, as I reported in June, some of our staff are feeling stressed because of understaffing in their departments. The National Union voted to support a PSRP Bill of Rights, committed our energy to focus on the needs of staff, and to work for school policies and legislation that address their serious concerns, particularly over the next 2 years. We at AFT Lone Star will also renew our commitment to speak for the needs of our important staff employees, as we have always done, but we will emphasize that even higher. The second and final resolution I'd like to tell you about is a resolution that was passed in support of dual credit and early college programs as a means to expand access to higher education for economically distressed families, as well as preparing young people for high-paying technical jobs right out of high school, if that is what they prefer. This resolution aligns well with the priority House Bill 8 has placed on access to dual credit for Texas community colleges as part of our funding model. The AFT resolution calls on colleges and schools to assure that dual credit classes have equivalent entry requirements to all other college classes, that the content of dual credit classes must be equivalent to that of classes taught on college campuses, that dual credit teachers meet the credentials set by college accrediting agencies, that faculty and students are afforded the same academic freedom in high school as they are in colleges, that dual credit students are paired with college advisors, and that dual credit programs enhance both the academic and social development of students. Most of these priorities are already well established at Lone Star College, but as dual credit enrollment grows, it will be important that we and our partner ISDs work together to ensure that students experience the benefits of both high school and college, and that faculty and staff at both levels are fully supported, valued, and their rights are protected. We will be writing extensively about these and other resolutions passed at the convention in our next issue of The Advocate, our union newsletter, which will be sent to all Lone Star employees once the new school year begins. So at the moment, I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you this evening and for your very kind attention, and it is good to be back. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, any report from board members? Anyone?
Yes, thank you. And I'm with the venue change and time change for board meetings. And let me start by saying that we're going to do this in executive session, but since there is no executive session, then I did check with council, and then we are going to just be public with what we came up with. So let me thank you, Chair Stomer, for basically creating a committee to study the feasibility of a venue and a time change. I always preface by saying that Lone Star College is a premier college system. And to bring us up to par, we've done a lot of research. I'm going to start off, but I'm going to allow my committee members. Trustee Salazar is going to speak about public, information, and Trustee Sullivan is going to talk about the venue change and what we came up with. Let me start by saying there were 4 things that we thought about that we came across. One was inclusivity. How do we increase inclusivity? How do we get more people attending these meetings? I'm talking about churches. I'm talking about nonprofit organizations. And I did do research. We worked hard on this. We did research. And some of the pastors, my pastor, along with other pastors, said that, they don't give up their evening time because they have mission, the women's mission, the men's this and that. And the only times that their people can really show up, they work. It's at 5 o'clock and beyond. And they also said they would want to come to our meetings if they were mid-morning, and then they go and they say they're not coming at 2 or 3 because they visit the sick and shut in. So we have to look at that. Nonprofits say they would come at mid-morning. And they say they would come because they too have a staff that they need to oversee. Now, I went through and we researched the times that other major universities meet. They all meet mid-morning. And research also contends that when you meet mid-morning, guess what? You're more, your mind is more creative. You're more alert. Now, we also looked at accessibility, which that means, where's the centralized location between all of the college campuses? And Trustee Sullivan is going to speak to that. Safety was another consideration. How do we increase safety, not only just for the board members, but for everyone who's coming to these meetings? And another thing is consideration. I think that's the thing that's most overlooked. And when I talk about consideration, I'm talking about staff, I'm talking about parents, because I've been there. And I know how it is that some of you come to work at 7, you leave here at 9 o'clock. Not fair. Some of you are caretakers. So we're putting all this together in the research. As a matter of fact, I'm going to just hand one down. We have Trustee Kane. Would you pass one down to each person?
We got someone to help.
So let me say about safety. Now, I don't know about anybody here, but I will say this. I know the chancellor, listen, I am a gun packing grandma. Okay, chancellor always tells me, trustee, you cannot bring your weapon. You can't bring your weapon to the board meeting. I understand that. The reason that I carry, and I do have a permit, is because my husband is very concerned. He never did like the fact that I am getting home at 9 and 10 o'clock and we stay on the phone. Now, recently, when it was before Beryl, I think, and I can ask my female colleagues, we were on the phone with each other all night because we didn't know where the high waters were. We didn't know anything. And we were talking, did you get home? Are you home? Are you home? Those are the kinds of things that we are concerned about. Let me tell you something about crime. Criminal activity doesn't care about your age. It doesn't care about your race. It doesn't care about your creed. It creeps up on you. And one thing research says that if you have your meetings during daylight, it's safer. At least if someone is following me and I'm looking through my mirrors, my rear view and side mirrors, I can see a car. If it's, okay, this car has been behind me, and that has happened to me. It's been behind me for the last 5 blocks. Of course, I didn't go home. I kept going until I found a place that had a lot of people, and I saw a police car. Now, these things are real, folk. I don't know about you, but I mean, that night, we 4 women sit on this board, and we talk to each other all night, and we text each other until we got home safely. Now, some of you, if you have a spouse, crime, it doesn't care, like I said, whether you're male or female. But if you have, my husband doesn't even allow me to go to the gas station anymore. Says, if you got to get gas, you go to HEB and make sure you go during the daytime. That's how specific he is. So a matter of changing a time It's just not about, I don't know where 5 o'clock came from, but most of the universities, again, U of H, Prairie View, TSU, these people meet mid-morning. People are more productive. I'm just putting that out. Now, I go to consideration. I am a considerate person. I have been younger. I've had children that were young. I've also been a caretaker. So at 5 o'clock, my time is better spent. I need to get home. I was a latchkey kid, but I didn't want my children to be latchkey kids. These are not the good times. And if you're a caretaker, unless you have a lot of money, when I had my mother at home, I had to release her sitter at 5 o'clock, or I was paying an extra $20 an hour. I didn't have that kind of money. I paid her all day for 8 hours. So these things are real. And I am a considerate person. And this is why, we're talking about some of these changes. Just because it's always been 5 o'clock doesn't mean it has to remain 5 o'clock. Now, when I came in today, I came earlier because I had a meeting. I was appalled at 3 o'clock at the traffic. I couldn't believe this. I said, you mean to tell me this is bumper to bumper at 3? My goodness. And just think when school reopens, it's even worse. I also think about people, who don't live close to the boardroom. You have a long haul. You even have a longer haul when you're trying to get home. So none of these things were done in isolation. Trust me, they were not. And when I talk about, again, inclusivity, I mean, if we want the public to be more attuned, we're going to have to give them a time when they can come. You have to give them a time. And this is real. That's why funerals are held early and they're not held later than 1 o'clock so that people can go. I mean, I know it's a sad thing, but I was just thinking about, and I want to just be silent for a moment, for my congresswoman and my sorority sister, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Her funeral, part of it, one of them was held today at Fallbrook, and that's why the Fallbrook College Center was closed today. Am I right? Yeah. Her funeral was held. But anyway, that is, we're not here to try to be disruptive at all. We're just here to bring Lone Star College system almost into the 21st century. And I don't think, like I said, and being a female, even if I lived far away, if I'm in the daytime, I feel better in the daytime. I don't know, I can see my surroundings, you know what I mean? And I also, it's just safer for me. I can see if a child runs in front of me. I mean, just little things like that. We don't think about it, but if a car halts all of a sudden, you can see. And I want to know who's behind me, who's on the side of me. I don't want anybody just to roll up on me, and I don't know what I'm looking at. But anyway, I'm making this a little humorous, but I'm very serious about what I'm saying. This is a safety issue. I don't know about anybody else, but my husband, he first of all, he couldn't get over the fact that we met at 5 o'clock because in his world, nobody meets in the afternoon. People go home. They don't meet. Any judge, they having a meeting, they're having their meetings at morning, or they're having them at noon. They don't have meetings at night. And so I just, and I don't think that, I don't want to see your thunder, Trustee Miriam, but like I said, when you have meetings at a time you consider it to people, they will come. Like the old saying said, build it, they will come, they will come. Now, I'll jump in every now and then, but I'm going to now turn it over to Trustee Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could have my colleagues take a look at page 6 of the Lone Star College venue committee data. Would like to report just very briefly on that. So just kind of piggyback to what you've mentioned, Madam Chair, is one of the decisions that we made about, time and venue change was including would we have any disruption of public participation? Because after all, we are a community college and we're here for the public, and we cater to you. And based on the data that we asked to be pulled for us, if you can look that since 2022, the data that we have here is from 2022 up until 2024. Try to make sure that, because I know all of you, I don't have this, but see if I can get it across. We really didn't have that much public participation or public comment aside from the AFT. And obviously, back in 22, we had a good participation, citizen participation. regarding homestead exemption. I don't know if you remember that. For those of you who were there at the time, we had really good participation from citizens regarding homestead exemption. Aside from this, and based on this information, we feel, the committee feels that there's really not going to be, based on the data, there's really not going to be any intention or interruption of public participation to this, if we change it to this new venue change in time. There's also the ability for folks to participate is that we have virtual meetings now. So for those of you who are not able to join us with the new time, there's always virtual meeting that you can join us and, support us, write for public comment. So the options are there. We really feel that with this new venue and time change, we feel based on this data, there's going to be no to very little participation interruption. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Can I be recognized?
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Thank you, PRC Chair Pierce. So I had not, let me give you just a little background for me. I had not given this any consideration until it was brought up. And I approached it with an open mind. I work on the west side of town at Gessner and I-10 the few times a week that I'm actually in the office. Usually I'm in my car on an airplane. I live in Kingwood. The system office is not convenient for me. So what I do and have done for almost 6 years, I come out here 2 to 3 hours before the board meeting and I get a touchdown desk over in the other building and I work there for 2 or 3 hours just so I can make sure I am here on time and am somewhat relaxed, refreshed, and ready to participate in the board meeting. Looking at the UP, Lone Star College UP location, from my point of view, it's centrally located. I looked at the map in the conference room, the committee did, Trustee Pierce, Trustee Saldivar, and myself looked at the aerial map of the facilities, and the SO is an outlier to some degree. UP is more centrally located, easier to get to. That's how I approached it. So when the committee was formed and we started doing our work, the more I looked at this and the more information I had access to and was available to me, I became more supportive of a venue change, even though I had not thought of it before. I also became, frankly, much more supportive of a time change. I'm unique in that I can carve out 2 or 3 hours during the day or at evening. My schedule, I kind of control my schedule. So meeting during the day would work for me because it would allow me to get home. Frankly, I'd like to be home in the evenings as you don't have to agree. You don't have to, we're going to take care of that later. It'd be nice to be home. It'd be nice to be refreshed. It'd be nice to spend some time with my wife because I am on a plane a lot. So I would gain some personal quality time that would be important to my family. So with that said, I went from not thinking about it to looking at the data to becoming supportive, and that's where I am. Now, the committee met at the UP campus and took a tour. I was unable because I had a last minute flight out of town. I was unable to attend. The trustees, Pierce and Saldivar, were escorted by Ms. Martinez and Mr. Crawl, Dr. Crawl, Mr. Crawl, and given maps and were given a chance to turn on the lights and kick the tires, so to speak. Where are the restrooms? Where's the safety exit? What's the sound look like? What are the visual arts? What's available with respect to AV? And just kind of got a feel for, can this work? And as perfect as we might think the room in the other building is right now for board meetings, it's imperfect. So we can make our board potential board meeting room more accommodating for 2024, 2025, and maybe a few more years. That would be an advantage. Now, there's some cost to that. The administration has taken input from Trustee Pierce, Trustee Saldivar, and myself as to some modifications, and we also asked for recommendations from the administration. So the contractors need more time to get those costs together. I think they're probably forthcoming from the administration. When you have them, you'll present them to the committee. Then the committee can evaluate it, make a recommendation to the board. So with that said, I think we've covered a lot of bases. And for someone that wants to meet at night, great. Someone wants to meet it during the day, great. For someone that meets out here at the SO, great. I think everyone has their preference is my point. It's not worth dying on the sword over. I'll just say that. I think it is going to be a reasonable request. I think it's going to be worth considering. And I'd encourage everyone on the board to be open-minded and to be fair. Open-minded and fair. We all have our opinions, but we all need to respect others' opinions up here as well. And sometimes I'm on the fence about that, but I'm trying to get better. But I really do think that we need to respect everyone's opinion here. So we're going to look at the cost. We have looked at the facility. The committee likes one of the 3 rooms. It's a large room. We met in it before, actually. It works for us. It would accommodate a crowd like this and maybe even larger. It's convenient with respect to parking. It is secure. It is an active campus, and that might be helpful as well. That's a campus where students are. That's a campus where a lot of faculty is. We need to see that. The only time I get to see students in action and the activity and the coming and going is if I go to Kingwood. It just is. I don't see it here. I'm operating in a vacuum in a sense. So I like the aspect, the prospect of engaging with students. Maybe a government class sends students over to our board meeting. Who knows? I'm getting a little long-winded. I apologize. So I'll wrap up. But I just see a lot of potential to do a lot of neat things. It is the recommendation, unanimous recommendation of the PRC to have an agenda item on the September agenda, Chancellor, even though this is not future board meeting request at this time, the committee report is up. So I'll make a formal request on behalf of Chair Pierce and Trustee Saldivar as well, that we have this on the September agenda so that we can vote. That will also give our contractors, fingers crossed, hopefully, a chance to submit their bids. Now we're going to, this will be my final comment, and I apologize for being long-winded again, but we're going to vote on a $513 million operating budget tonight. $513 million. Our reserves are 36 to 38%, depending upon the latest version that Dr. Vienne presents tonight. That's about $173 million. I think we can reasonably afford, if the board decides to move, I think we can reasonably afford to do that. I don't think it's extravagant. We're not talking about private meeting rooms and all kinds of stuff. We're talking about a functional facility that frankly might even be helpful to the campus itself, the UP campus. It's not that we're going to own the room and then lock the doors. I mean, it's going to be available for others to use. So this is an investment that could benefit the community, could benefit the board, and could benefit the campus. So with that said, I'll pitch it back to Chair Pierce, and thank you very much, Colin.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Of the locations at UP, which one are you recommending?
The largest one, I believe, is called the Grand Ballroom, maybe?
Grand Hall?
Grand Hall, yes, sir.
And Chair Pierce,
Yes, sir.
as custodians of the public money, as we look at all expenditures across this system, are we going to have some kind of close estimates on what this move is going to cost?
Well, we're waiting for, we're waiting for that to come forth.
Okay.
Mr. Crawl and his, committee, the storm came, barreled, everything, threw everything out of,
So my
off the calendar.
recommendation would be, I don't have any issue of, with having an agenda item next time, but I think we're going to need to look at the cost because you've got to be good managers here, right? And see what the cost is going to be. And indeed, if it is, we all, in our perception, agree with Trustee Sullivan on the scale of the cost, then, it's a good argument. But I think we need to know the cost. That's the only thing about putting it on an agenda item for next meeting is we really need to know the cost and have a discussion on the cost of this prior to taking a vote on it. That's my opinion, but that's good management in my world.
May I be recognized, Chair Stoma?
I'm sorry.
May I be recognized?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Just,
I'm pretty firm on my request that it be on the September agenda. We'll find, if we don't have the numbers, we will report that. But I don't want to not put it on the agenda because we might not have the numbers. So my request is pretty firm that this be on the September agenda.
And your request is noted, and we have time to make those decisions. But we also have time to quantify this and know how much taxpayer money we're going to spend, right? How much money we're going to spend to do this, which is an important consideration, don't you think?
I said early on that we would be good stewards and that we were going to
There you go.
quantify the cost and present them to the board.
Yeah. I'm not talking against this. I'm just saying, let's be good managers, good stewards of the public money
Sure.
and know how much we're going to spend before we commit to spending.
Sure. Now we're repeating ourselves. So
Yeah.
let's move on.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Mr. Chair, I concur with my colleague trustee Sullivan. I do want this to be on the September agenda.
So noted.
Mr. Chair, may I
Yes,
be
sir.
recognized? Thank
Trustee
you.
Wood.
Several years ago, this board decided that we were not reaching the public or making ourselves open to the public as much as we should because of the size of the district. So we went on a program of moving the board meetings to all of the campuses. We've gotten so big, I don't think we can make all of them in 1 year now. And things were put together, not as big as this, but adequate at each campus we went to. And we did our meetings that way. I don't think the cost of changing our venue should be that much, but I'm not getting in that argument. But I think it would be worthwhile to reconsider that option as well, because it's going to be a long drive for somebody, no matter what. Just a thought.
Chair Stone, can I be recognized?
Okay. Anyone else? Trustee Sullivan again?
Thank you. Mr. Vogt, we did, as a committee, just so you know, we did talk about the history of moving around the campuses. And it may have worked at that time, but I think that the committee is looking for a home. I think the committee wants a place to meet all the time. I'll give you an idea with respect to moving around to hit all the campuses. I'll take you back to the redistricting hearings, public hearings required by law that I had to conduct. I actually called at urging of outside counsel, 2 meetings per campus. We met at every campus once. We had 1 person attend, 1. I came back to the board and recommended that we cancel the second round of meetings because no one was showing up. So it's not the same as a board meeting, and I understand, but the committee's recommendation is UP. And we did discuss various locations. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Soma.
Sure, thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, Chair, Pierce, would you be open to considering if we don't have the numbers to perhaps schedule a meeting there at that location and then, you know, that way it allows us to have time to do the research or find out whether it's a good process or not? I mean, just in case we in the event that we cannot get the numbers, that's a suggestion.
I mean, I don't follow you. Oh.
I'm just wondering, I mean, does it have to be, I don't know if it, until I see the board action, I don't know exactly what I'm gonna vote on, but there's nothing to keep us from saying that we want to meet there next month, or I mean, whenever. In other words, it doesn't have to be permanent, any action we take.
Well, do you want to have a September meeting at UP? Is that what you're saying? I mean, that's what I'm getting.
If that was, yeah, in other words, if you know, because I wouldn't want to see those numbers, you know, if we're making a long-term commitment or something like that, I don't want to have to decide after the fact, oh, no, this was not a good, wise
You
decision.
know, we may have our numbers by then. There's nothing to say that we.
Yeah, I
have
think so.
But now, and we do want it on the agenda regardless, but if, I like the idea that if you want to meet, you know, I don't have a problem with meeting at UP in September. If that's what you want, if,
I'm for that, if that's.
I mean, if
yeah,
that
yeah.
makes everybody, you know, if everybody would like to meet there and just get a feel for it and we still have it on the agenda, I can agree with that. Let's meet halfway. Let's have the meeting, September's meeting at UP. And let's have it on the action, you know, also on our action item to be voted on. I think that's a great idea. Thank you, trustee.
So would that be an action, but would that be something we could vote on today? That's, I don't know.
No, there is
There's
no
no
voting.
We don't have to, we don't have
There
to.
is no item on the
This is a
agenda
committee
tonight.
report.
Okay, that was just my suggestion.
But
Yeah,
can we
the-
decide to meet at UP? We can do that, right?
I believe the policies specify the time and location. I'm not certain, and I don't have that policy in front of me. I'm not certain whether there is an exception or language that would permit an exception if it's noticed differently, but I'm happy to review that and work with the chair.
Yeah, I mean, we could always move it. I mean, we moved it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did here. That's what I'm saying. We can
We
always
just
have a
need to
meeting.
cover our bases here, right?
Right.
So would you take a look at that and get back with me? We'll communicate back to the board.
Okay.
Any other, trustee,
I think there are a lot of issues
Okay.
involved here. And in terms of a September agenda item, I think it's critical that we have the cost at that time. And if the cost is not available at that time, I think it would be wise for this board to postpone the agenda item for a later date, perhaps October. Because I think the cost among some other issues is really important.
Well, nobody's saying that the cost is not important, but we can still have it on the agenda. And if we don't have the cost, you know, we can postpone until October if that's the will of the board. But I'm requesting as my committee that this be on the board's agenda action item in September. And as a board member, you know, as a committee, we have that right.
you do.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this? Okay. I guess that was our committee. Any other committees? Trustee Sullivan, do you have anything you want to, on the audit committee or anything?
No additional reports, no audit and finance committee report that
Okay,
time. Thank you.
cool. Any other comments by the board? Actions? Then we will consider the consent agenda. There are 25 items on the consent agenda. Are there any you want pulled for consideration? Anyone? So there's no items to pull then. May I have a motion to approve items 1 through 25 inclusive? May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Been motioned in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Then the items pass. Thank you. All righty. Financial report.
Thank you, trustees, Chancellor, Chair Sema, presenting the financial report this evening. As has already been indicated, we did not have a meeting in July. And so the financial statements are for month end ending June 30th of 2024. As you can see, in a very positive position, happy to report and continue the good news that has been shared thus far. To date, as of the June 30th closing of the books, we had $473 million in actual revenues collected, which would equate to 103.2% of what was budgeted for the fiscal year 24. The majority of that was due to state appropriations being increased by $24.4 million. And again, the last of the 3 pay schedule that we've already talked about several times this year was received during that last fiscal cycle. Tuition and fees increased by about 20 million for April. Tax revenues actually decreased by about 322,000 from April due to some software issues that MCAT had caused and delay of refunds. Investments, we're happy to indicate increased by about 3 million from April. And then miscellaneous revenue and products and service equated to about $1.5 million. Bringing again the total revenue for June to $473 million. Looking at expenditures, we're still tracking fairly consistent with the previous years, with 325 million of actual expenditures being recognized through June for a total of our operating budget of $72.8 million in expenditures. And looking at the financial statements in more of a graphic way, you can see here from the chart and in your books that you should have the full financial reporting, 98 million in state appropriations versus 67 million in state appropriations from fiscal year 23, 141 million in tuition versus 125 million in 23. 212 in taxes versus 195. And then of course, looking at investments, almost double 14 million over the 7 million. Looking at the financial statements, again, as you look at last year's budget that was approved of 458 million, you can see the forecasted budget variance there by category. And so total revenues exceeded $26 million in what was budgeted from previous year, giving us a fiscal actuals of 473 million through June 30th. This is just another graph of looking at the ways that we've already reported that information. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the next chart, excuse me. So looking at the financial statements again for expenditures for month end June 30th, you can see there's not any significant forecasted variance to describe to you all. Again, a more detailed report of the financial is included in your packet, as well as the construction and grounds report. So any questions from the board or? Thank you again.
All righty. We will not have a closed session today. So that comes down to agenda items. We certainly have the agenda item that's been proposed by the special committee. Any other items? Any other? Sullivan?
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's not a specific agenda item, but since this was on the consent agenda and the budget passed, I'd like for us to think about having 2 public hearings next year for the budget and the tax rate. We have 2 now, kind of technically, but I think it would be, I don't want to say more transparent because I think we're very transparent. I think it would be helpful maybe to some people if we laid out the budget, then had a hearing, skip, have another hearing and a vote.
Talking about in the tax approval, I'm sorry, I'm having problems
Yes,
hearing you.
yeah, this follows, and I'm looking at the chancellor, if you don't mind, Chair, because it follows with an email string that I had with him. So maybe I should preface this by asking a question. Are we required to have a public hearing for the budget?
I don't think so, sir. You
Okay.
have to have a public hearing for the tax rate adoption, which is
Right.
usually a part of the budget, but we could divorce the two and really then have only the hearing for the tax rate. But I think to answer your question, I think we could add another meeting because you're talking about budget adoption,
Yes.
right? Not the October tax rate hearings that we have in October. So I think if I'm understanding correctly, you would like a meeting sometime between the June the June
Layout.
I
Mhm,
guess, for
mhm,
lack of a
mhm.
better word, and the vote
Vote.
today,
Yes.
you would like an intermediate step somewhere along the way in there to be able to publicly discuss the budget. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Then yes, sir, we can do that if that
Okay.
is what the board would like.
Yes, sir. And it's not a result of any lack of cooperation from the administration or Dr. Vian. Y'all been nothing but helpful. It's an adoption of what I have experienced with a couple of other public entities. And to go from a presentation in June to a vote in August, when the numbers are moving almost every day, according to Dr. Vian, and I believe her, it's hard for me to fully understand it. I think I'm capable, but I'd rather have an opportunity to review it and ask questions. Right now, I feel like we are getting the initial layout, which is helpful and no criticism at all. And then it shows up on the budget to vote. I mean, on the agenda to vote. And I just, we're north of 500 million now.
Well, that would
Those
mean
numbers-
we'd have to have a meeting in July, right? Because there's no other time between June and August.
Well, what we could do, and again, thinking out loud, which is always dangerous in a public setting. But what we could do, I think, we don't have to have this board meeting on August 1st, for example, right? We could move this board meeting a week or two. In fact, I was exchanging emails with the chancellor of another community college system that moved theirs 2 weeks this year because they're waiting on certain numbers, enrollments and things like that. So we could very much make it, if that's what the board would like, that this meeting is that meeting. And then maybe a week from now or 2 weeks from now, have another meeting to adopt the budget at that time.
Would that take a board approval to do that, or can the chancellor just do it?
That's simply a presentation. The chancellor can just do that.
Well, we would need a board meeting, right? Because that's what he's asking
He's
for.
asking
Trustee
for-
Sullivan, is
Have
that
an
for an
additional,
board-
additional board meeting. It'd be similar to a workshop, I think.
correct? But
or
the
a special
chancellor doesn't
meeting
have
and-
the authority to call a board meeting.
Right,
Only the board
but
does.
the chair does. I'd have to review the policies, but I think that it's permissible.
Would you review
Um,
the policy on that? Let's see
Yep.
what we can do.
Okay, and Chancellor, if I could you give me maybe pros and cons, your initial thoughts to doing it? And also, we're dumping this in your lap
Sure.
potentially.
So I can give you
Um,
mine, and then Dr. Vian, if you'll come up, because I'm sure I'm not going to pretend to know things I don't know. And Dr. Vian knows more than I do when it comes to this. So I think that part of the issue is we need to make sure that we have enough delta between that second board meeting and the start of the new fiscal year, which is September 1st, right? Because there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes from loading budgets. There's a lot of people, believe it or not, that don't believe anything the administration says until the board adopts the budget. And it's good for you because those are promises that until the board sort of ratifies those promises, they're just promises, right? And so there's a lot of, there's a culture component to it. There's a financial component to it. But Dr. Vian is in a much better position to answer the financial ramifications.
Yes, and I'm happy to address any specific questions. I mean, obviously, it is, it takes a lot of time. Obviously, as you know, we started talking about the budget in February with the original budget workshop. and the team works on it really throughout the year. So at any given time, we're actually working on 3 budgets potentially. So we're closing out FY 24, working on 25, and then already looking towards FY 26 as we put those together. So if that's what the board wants, we can definitely work within that schedule. Our biggest limitations with a lot of this, especially challenging this year, with state appropriations changing, the formula changing a number of times throughout the year. And of course, our biggest variable still remains tax rates. It's when we get the actual certified rolls, and that is still always something that we are estimating up in time that the actuals are received. So, but again, if that's what the board wants, we can definitely accommodate that.
I appreciate you saying if that's what the board wants, but respecting your opinion and your thoughts, give me kind of pros and cons. I think what I experienced in the past and also is that this year is that, like you said, you're waiting on the state. And that's a big part of our revenue. And we may never be able to devise a perfect timeline when we're relying on outside sources. But it's a little difficult for me to just accept it that, well, we got these numbers 2 days ago and now we're voting. I don't mean that, because as it would be very clear, you've been open, transparent, and answered every question I've come up with, and Chancellor, same with you and everyone on your team. This is not a reaction to anything other than, can we have just a little more time if it doesn't pose any problems? Be very clear about that. I don't want to create problems for y'all at all. If it creates work or problems, this works. It's worked for decades.
So I think then, Trustee Sullivan, with that in mind, if we could have a month and then maybe next month we can come and present, that way we can give all of because there's a lot of affected employees, right? From people that are sitting in the audience right now that are probably wondering, please don't say the wrong thing to the Chancellor and Dr. Vienne, right? And so I don't have a problem with, no one in this administration has a problem with increased transparency. So I appreciate you saying that. The second thing, so I think if we could just have a month and we can come prepared, and I will present myself on sort of the pros and cons of adding that intermediate step. I think that way we'll do better justice to all the very hardworking employees of this institution.
Okay, good. Thank you all. And once again, I just want, y'all are great. Just couldn't be better.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Chair Stama.
Any other items for next month's agenda? If not, it's 6:27. I adjourn this meeting.